I still have concern about making sure that we build the product that the customer wants. Because ultimately, to me, there has to be a natural market. Otherwise, we don't have someone who can buy it and have joy.
Hello, and welcome to Working with me, Dan Doriani, hosting a podcast where we explore faith, work, culture, and the way believers can make a difference in their corner of the world. Welcome, friends, to another podcast. Tom Schoupe is an automotive expert, and I'm just going to, Tom, walk through who you are a little bit, and then you can add to it or subtract or correct anything that needs to be stated. So Tom was president of Honda Manufacturing of Alabama for a number of years, and as president of manufacturing, he oversaw a $1.4 billion enterprise, 4,000 employees, producing Honda Odysseys and the Pilot minivan and the Ridgeline pickup truck. And doing that, not only assembly work, but also producing the engines about 75 miles or so from where we're sitting today. Yep. You've had a variety of other positions in the corporation for Honda in America and also for automotive enterprises and organizations that oversee the production of cars. So we don't get a lot of manufacturers here. And so I'm excited to have you here today. Say a little bit more or less, describe your work, maybe a tiny bit more than what I said in the last few minutes.
Yeah, I actually, to go back even further, most of the people that grew up with me and that knew me as a young man were shocked when I became a plant manager at Honda.
Okay.
For obvious reasons, I guess, to them. But I was not a trained engineer. I used to get that question all the time, but was somebody who came into the auto business from Washington, D.C., where I was working on Capitol Hill, and started in a kind of external affairs type of role, and then kind of migrated my way into what the Honda called production control, and then from there into an assignment in Japan. And when I got back from Japan, I actually was assigned to manufacturing.
Okay.
And it was a bigger cultural change for me than living in Japan in some ways.
That's interesting.
But I was very embraced. It was something that was very consistent with the philosophy of the founder to not necessarily put people into little boxes and say, you're an engineer, so you can do this. Or you're, everything was wide open to you. And if you had curiosity and you had passion to help others and advance the team and do a good job, you could do things like be a non-engineer in manufacturing, become a plant manager if you wanted, and eventually an executive at Honda. So I carried that experience throughout my career, the rest of my career, which was 33 years working at Honda.
So we don't know each other real well, but we did have a fairly long conversation a while ago, and I noticed that you are sort of you have a wide-ranging mind. We ended up talking about all sorts of things. We ended up talking about minerals and mining and efficiencies and car repairs and Adam Smith, and we ranged all over. So I can see why maybe Mr. Honda saw something in you, in his view, enabled you, and in fact, you did shift from one side to another side.
Yeah, I think probably what you say is true based on the number of people that have given me that kind of feedback over the years. But I think a lot of that with me came from the early days of my upbringing and the way that my parents were. My father was a minister. My mother was a teacher. Books were welcome and open and stretching minds. And the thing that they really embedded in my sisters and I, though, was a love of God, first and foremost, and helped us establish our own relationship with Christ, brought us to Christ. And then I think the base of what they taught us and what they gave us was shown through their example of loving and caring for people. And so that's something that I think kind of was a foundational thing for me when I went into the work world in Washington, and then carried over into my manufacturing and other work that I've done. That foundation of focus on human beings and the value of human beings first. And Honda, a really natural fit for me.
And Honda has a respect for the individual, joy in the workplace mentality. I mean, Mr. Honda was not a Christian, but those are certainly Christian values of respecting everybody and seeking joy
Yeah. And one thing that was really, one reason why I joined Honda, obviously I was from Ohio and they were the first multinational, foreign auto company to do what they did, which was establish a major operation in the United States to actually build not just cars, but engines and all the things that, are made from molten metal and all those things. So very intense manufacturing. And it was a big risk for Honda. And it wasn't welcome by everybody at that time in the 1980s. They were unique in so many different ways. But one thing that really struck me and drew me to Honda in particular was the foundation of the company's philosophy, which grew right out of the founder, Mr. Honda. People ask me sometimes, there's really a Mr. Honda?
Yeah, right.
Well, there was. And, I had an opportunity to meet him and spend time with him on his last visit to North America, and, couldn't speak a lot of English. He could speak some. I couldn't speak much Japanese, but somehow we were able to communicate.
Okay. Yes.
And I think that means you probably have a heart
that's
open for that. But anyway, that was one thing that was different for me about Honda and what attracted me. This is a new thing. It's they have this fundamental foundation of beliefs that's just based on the things that I was raised to believe. It wasn't so different, like you said.
So common grace allowed them to see things. So respect for individuals, but we talked a little bit about the joys that he wants. Would you just tell us about his principle that car making and car driving should be joyful?
Yeah, the foundation of the philosophy, as you said, was first respect for the individual, but then the second kind of base of the philosophy was something he called the three joys. He and his early partner, a guy named Fujisawa, who was also a remarkable guy. But basically, what it entailed was he wanted everyone who came in touch with any of the products from his company to experience pure and utter joy in buying them, selling them, building them, designing them, whatever it may be. He defined those as three joys: the joy of manufacturing, the joy of buying, the joy of selling. So if you were using the product as a customer, he really wanted you to have. He
wanted you to feel the joy that was in the workers.
He wanted you to connect with that project, whether you were weed trimming or plowing your garden with the plow, or driving a car or a motorcycle.
Or I remember an early ad they had about Honda lawnmowers. And you could just pull them easily instead of torturing yourself trying to pull it. And that was good. But let me talk about, how you treat people. It's come up a couple times. In our previous conversation, you said to me at one point, how you treat people determines whether you will have people to treat.
Yeah.
Remember saying that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do remember saying that. Yeah.
So that, I think that means something like, if you treat people poorly, they're going to quit a lot.
Yeah.
And that'll have a definite negative effect on something as highly skilled as manufacturing.
Yeah. And I think, again, that for me in my career at Honda was very natural for me, because that was the orientation of the leadership of Honda worldwide.
Right. And your personal orientation.
And my personal orientation was a fit. In fact, a lot of my Japanese friends used to always say, "Oh, Tom-san, I think maybe for you, Honda philosophy is like breathing air." Already, it's so natural.
Yeah.
You do it involuntarily. It's kind of what they...
Yeah, what a great thing to be aligned with the values of your person.
I think what I found, though, as I went through my career, things start out a certain way, and there's at the beginning of something, there's this passion, and everything's wonderful in the company. Well, by the time I got back from my assignment in Japan, things had become not as wonderful, because that's kind of what happens in manufacturing. And I got to get that schedule when I've got products. And what I found when I got back from Japan, with a renewed, deeper understanding of Japanese culture, and believe it or not, the biggest thing I learned when I lived in Japan was about myself. I learned about me. In Japan.
A lot of people would say they learn about themselves when they go to a foreign country,
and
right?
My wife and I both really reinvigorated, I should say the Holy Spirit used our experience there to really bring us closer to the Lord in Japan.
Yeah, because it's not a highly Christian nation, to say the least.
Yeah, which I'm sad to say was not on our list of top priorities when we went, because we were like babies. We couldn't speak the language. We couldn't.
Right.
You're basically back to square one.
Yes.
So anyway, I came back from Japan and I realized very quickly when they assigned me into manufacturing, which is very people oriented, very people intensive, that focus on each person, especially when you're in a senior leadership role, is critically important.
Yes.
However you can touch them is important, and it determines whether their heart is with you as their leader or their heart is with the company. And because I believe people choose to follow, that they don't just follow orders. They might follow orders for a while,
but they follow a person.
But with their heart, they'll choose who they trust to follow and who they have respect for. But I feel like the whole Honda philosophy of respect for the individual, to me, was another way of saying the golden rule that I learned as a child. Treat others as you wish to be treated. But I found in practice it was not common to find that being applied. And therein lies the problem. So anyway, that I think knowing those fundamental things, that trying to pursue policies and create vision and strategy and direction for a team of thousands of people who don't really know you that well. Means you have to really work hard to build that trust and respect and do things that inspire them to want to follow the direction that you're going.
So we talked about treating people well, and we certainly agree on that. And I think everybody has their own way to go about treating people well. For example, in this building, I'll go get a sip of coffee from a coffee pot 50 steps away just to say hi to people. And I'll go over there and open the door and say hi for some excuse to just connect with people. And I'm sure everybody has their way of connecting. But it's also true that you're building cars. And the maturity of the car industry is pretty clear. I mean, there's a way to build cars. If you're doing it a new way, you're probably doing it the wrong way. At least is the impression people have. Like, it's done on an assembly line, and this is the way you build a car. So number one, how are cars actually built? There's a lot of parts that come from all over the world. How's it built? And is there room for diversity? I'll take that. Number two, is there room for variation to make it more human and more caring? But first, give us a summary of how you actually build a car.
That's a tough question because it's such a big process.
It's big. I know. Pretend you're talking to an 11-year-old. And they don't know all that much about the world. But they also have a short attention span.
Basically, you start out, you plan what you want to do, what you want to build.
The car, the truck.
The car, the truck, the product itself. And once, not necessarily in sequence, but once you have that vision and that on paper,
the design.
It's
going to be this big. It's going to have this engine.
And you know what features you want because you're focused on your customer and trying to satisfy
your customer wants.
What your customer wants drives everything. And then from that, you start to make a plan. And the plan is very important, sometimes forgotten, but very important. You make the plan and you try to capture all the elements that are needed to produce that product that you've designed. And
from cylinders to floor mats.
Every piece of the product, and some parts that you buy, you may want to buy sub-assembled. Some you may want separately. So you need someone to sub-assemble a part that you're going to ultimately put in there. So you lay all that out in infinite detail.
I bet it's massively detailed.
And then you have to lay out a schedule. Very important, especially with Honda, to make a plan, make a schedule, align all the items, who's responsible for each item in detail, set up your reviews and everything you have to do to make sure you meet the schedule. When you meet the design schedule and the development schedule on time, then you start to introduce it to production. And in the case of Honda and most large auto manufacturers today, probably about 80% of their product that they assemble comes from outside their facility. That's not generally true of all automakers.
So most of it comes from a distance.
It comes from parts suppliers, partners in business.
So you have to do all the logistics to get it there on time.
You have to investigate who does the best of what process you need to make those parts.
And so the car isn't breaking, for example.
And then you have to order those and make agreements of when they're going to be delivered. Again, the schedule is critical.
Yes.
Because once you turn the line on to build it, it's money.
the line keeps moving,
every
or else it's a real loss.
By
right.
is real money that goes by. So you have to get all that orchestrated, just like you would in a.
So
nice
all the
musical
nuts and bolts and pieces of glass are
Yeah.
all where they're supposed to be.
Thousands of parts.
How many
Thousands
parts?
of-
So an iPhone I read recently has 1,000 parts. How many parts are there to a Honda Odyssey or Ridgeline? You don't have to give me the exact number, but
I used to know that off the back of my hand, but nowadays, since I've been out of it for a few years, but I would say, probably, 2,500, 3,000 types of parts.
Okay.
Depending on the definition.
yeah, right. Yeah. But it's thousands. It's low thousands.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you you make modules, sometimes they count that as one part.
Yeah.
So,
Or several.
but it might
right.
have
yeah.
20 parts.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So anyway, it's not exact, but it's a lot of parts.
Yes.
And if I was describing to an 11-year-old, I would say it's a lot of parts. It's like, hey, boy. And so you get all these partners on board, and everybody's aiming toward that point where they have to deliver their product.
Put the thing together.
Yeah. And usually, the in-house parts, cause you also make parts in-house that you supply to the assembly or welding lines, in an assembly plant. And, basically most of those are made by the, final assembly company like Honda or Toyota or whatever.
Right.
And those would be the large door panels, and body panels, and those kind of things that maybe are harder to ship. But you do have a lot of other stamped parts that come in for the body. You make the body, you send those stamped parts into welding, and in welding, like in Honda's case, welding was over 95% automated.
Yes, and I wanted to ask you about that.
You bring all those parts in, and they have different zones and stations where they are welded together by all different types of technologies that.
Automated means robots do it.
Robots, yeah.
Yeah, right.
95% robots, maybe sometimes a little more
Okay.
than that. When we first started at Honda in the 80s, it was the opposite. It was people with these things trying to figure out how to make consistent welds every time.
Yes,
in the right spot or whatever it might be. So you get the body welded. It's called the body in white. That's what they call it in the industry. And it has no color. It's silver. Or this kind of absence of color. And then in our case, and I think most assemblers, then it has to go to paint. And there in paint, it has to get the body charged in something called E-coat.
Okay.
And that's to attract the paint part.
Yes, right. It's like a magnetic thing.
And then there's various coats of primer that's put on it. And then finally there's top coat. And then there's polishing, and there's all the things to do to make the paint look pristine.
Right. And so you don't have the paint peeling off like you see on old cars sometimes.
Right. And being a non-engineer, I used to drive our engineers crazy because I decided in my small mind one day that for me to understand paint and how complicated it was, it's like cooking.
Okay.
Baking.
Yes.
And there's all these variables and all these living organisms in the paint, and then these things that are part of the process of putting the paint coats on the car. And I never knew that before I was in the plant. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's like living creatures in this stuff.
I have to say, I did not know there were living creatures. They're they're tiny microbes, I'm sure.
Well, and those guys used to say, Tom, you can level down anything being a non-engineer.
Okay. All right.
And then, so once the car comes pristinely out of paint, then it goes on to an assembly line.
Which is then chair seats and steering wheel
all
and
the
locks
major parts of the interior part of the car, and the outside garnishes and the windshield wipers.
Oh, right.
Eventually the tires get put on. Different
the fluid holders.
Yeah. And different companies decide how much they want to automate the assembly area. We always struggled with that at Honda because sometimes you can over automate it and you don't get the human touch and feel that you need for quality or whatever. So, so we would ebb and flow, but not nearly as highly automated as welding. And paint was kind of in between on automation.
Right.
You saw more and more humans touching the product in paint, and then many more in assembly. And
I remember when you do a tire, for example, when I change a tire, if you do it too tight, if you get a flat, you got one. If you do it too tight, it's going to be really hard to get off.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it tight enough, it's going to fall off or start to wobble. So is that the kind of thing that we mean by you got to get it just right?
Yeah. And you can do that with equipment. I mean, there's some automated tire install machines, but they're set and they're checked on the torque value that they need.
By people.
Yeah. By people and engineers and so forth, to make sure that they're giving the proper torque for safety.
Yes.
But also to not cause quality problems in the product. So they're periodically checked. Now, if in the case of Honda, the 11-year-old's probably wondering, well, where does the engine come from? Well, in Honda's case, we were at heart an engine maker.
Yes, right.
So we had an engine factory down the road in Ohio that would make all the engines from molten metal, the stuff out of the earth, the sand and the iron and all that. And we would make a number of those parts and had suppliers that would provide other ones. We would assemble the engine.
Yeah.
And then the engine would be shipped to Marysville or East Liberty to be put in our assembly process.
And the word originally was, and I think it's going to be true to some extent still, you can correct me, but the original word was that Hondas cared about engines so much that they would last 250,000 miles. Now, the rest of the car might or might not, but the engine, we love our engines at Honda.
Yeah. In fact, I was just having that conversation with my brother-in-law over the holiday because he has a Honda Accord made in Marysville when I was there. And he was talking about that very thing. All these other things are starting to fail, but I've got 200 and some thousand miles and the engine's great. You know, and he was asking me, so what do you think I should do? You know, and I'm like, well, you know, you have to decide on your own.
Right.
Anyway, so the engine goes in, the tires go on, and then they start the testing of each car as it goes off the line. And then it goes to a quality assurance department after it goes off the assembly line, and it cycles through a number of tests, including every car gets driven.
Okay, good.
Just a short distance, and they check for dynamic quality issues of that, and then
the steering wheel works. And
if everything checks out and you ship it, you put the label that you see at the car dealer on the window. Ship it
there
over to the shipping company, and it waits for the truck. And so they say one last thing. We always said for years that we believe from the time they stamp the serial number, the VIN number on the white body in welding to the time a car came off the assembly line at Marysville or East Liberty plant in Ohio. So this is generally maybe true of many others. It took about 17 hours.
Okay. That's longer than we thought. Yeah. So it's a long line. And of course, anybody who's in manufacturing, a lot of people listening to this have a role in manufacturing. I mean, there are some things. I mean, I've been inside a plant that produced a high importance liquid. And, you know, there are all these people and all these activities and pallets and shipping and engineering, but the actual liquid going in the bottle didn't take very long. It was pretty quick and not many people were involved. I mean, all the effort came to that moment, but it was a short moment, but a car is different. Let me ask you on something different. I'm going to ask you about a couple of different things. First of all, we have an idea about assembly line work in our culture that it's awful. And it's mind-numbing and it's boring and nobody ever going to do that. And that certainly has been true at times. And we all know that Henry Ford kind of got the assembly line going and created efficiency, but people quit on him all the time because it was boring work, repetitive work. You know, you'd get sore. And when people, the same motion with a wrench endlessly. When people put iPhones together, rarely do they work more than a few months. Because it's tiny work and it's the same thing over and over again. It's bad for their eyes, bad for their hands, bad for their wrist. And so they just can't keep it up. Ford said, let's pay them better, pay more than doubled like that and shorter. And then they became more efficient, stayed longer. But that was almost 100 years ago or more than 100 years ago. And then it moved over to assembly lines that seemed highly repetitive. And then there's been back and forth in the automotive industry about how to take care of people so that you want the expertise of someone who's really good at something, but you also don't want them to hate their work. How did you try to thread that needle?
That's a tough, ongoing,
I bet it is.
Daily challenge. There are many different ways that we attack that. And I think, you know, people generally in the industry have the same plate in front of them as far as that goes. But one way that you can attack big problems in processes is when you design the new model.
Okay.
The next car. The car I'm building right now has a design where I have to do the process this way. That's
Right.
not good. So to take care of the safety of that person or the morale or whatever, I have to mitigate in the process somehow, which is maybe not the best engineering way to handle
You want to do it from day one, from the design phase.
But yeah, in theory, you would like to engineer all of that danger and, ergonomic, strife and everything out of the design.
Right.
But in the practical world, that's not always possible. So when you take that designer's product and you put it on the line with real parts and real people, you find, wait a minute, these don't exactly fit the way they're supposed to. I need to do something to make it work. And what we tried to do was build more robust process design on the manufacturing side to offset that, but also to make the process of manufacturing more efficient in general, because that should be your aim. You should be always trying to look for what can, this is my wording, but what loss do we have in the process? How can we identify that loss and try to eliminate it? And when I say loss, a lot of people think of money, where you're
not thinking it that way only.
Yeah, I think of loss in the big sense, which means wherever I have found loss in my career, not just in manufacturing, but in other areas, typically there's unhappiness. There's somebody whose morale is not what it should be because they think, I've been doing this, for 365 days and I've told people and I've had injuries and
repetitive motions.
Nobody listened to me. And it gets back to that human factor. Are you listening or not?
Yes.
And you show that you're listening by action.
Yes.
By taking action. And, so, there's no like a black and white silver bullet for that kind of thing because some of the processes are tedious. But we do things like engineered rotations.
Yeah, I was going to say, you let people who are putting on this bolt endlessly do tires or something.
Yeah. And then try to engineer out physically things that, at Honda we called it the 3Ds. Things that are dirty, dangerous, or dark. We try to focus ourselves on.
Is dark means mentally dark?
No, actually not.
Bad lighting.
Not well lit.
Good.
And that sort of thing. So how do we make the environment the best it can be and give you as an assembly line worker the chance to work safely every day to satisfy our customer? And that sounds easy, but when you consider
lighting is a challenge.
Oh, it is, and it's expensive. And anytime something comes down to how much does it cost, it makes the conversations more challenging. In my experience,
but light is a cost.
Definitely, and there are good ways to do it. There are bad ways to do it, and I still think it comes down to are you going to the spot at the line or wherever it is, understanding the problem, allocating the right resource to fix it. And then are you following up, feeding back, and you're continuing that process until you actually fix the problem.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's what happens with the trust issue, which is a big thing.
So you are trying to treat people well. I'm going to go to something else we talked about a previous time we visited. So we want to give people the light they need, a little bit of diversity. We want to avoid repetitive motion problems, even if sometimes there is repetition necessary. We also talked about scheduling, and assembly lines that are going full bore are going potentially 24 hours a day, which means potentially people are working from 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. or whatever it might be. There's also something called the mommy shift. That's a great idea for maybe especially single mothers or people, mom and dad both have to work because they have jobs that don't pay real well and they have children and they have needs. So the mommy shift is start after you can get your kids off to school, which is a wonderful idea. It gets women earning money into the workforce and using their skills. And it's also hard to make it actually function well at a place like Honda.
Yeah.
Can you just walk us through, not everything, but some of the highlights of scheduling and things like mommy shifts and the demands of industry versus the desire to take care of people?
Yeah, that is a big challenge. That's maybe more prevalent now than it was when I was managing plants.
Okay.
Which has now been, 12 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. But you're still involved in the industry.
Still involved in the industry,
yeah.
But it's a big challenge. And I don't know that I see as many creative ideas or proposals that are aiming at maybe changing the shifts or changing this fundamental schedule, because the challenge is you've got a workforce that's coming from so many different like sectors of, your
They're not all mommies.
We had typically in our workforce at that time, maybe 30% of the production workers were female.
Okay.
And they were different ages,
all ages,
and all that.
So maybe 30% of those were moms, so maybe 10% of your workforce.
Yeah, and because of seniority and hiring and how people would get assigned, a lot of times the ones that had younger kids tended to be on second shift, which is the shift that a lot of people don't like.
Which is 3 to 11.
Yeah, roughly 3 to 11. And, so we studied many different things, and I know everybody in the industry is constantly studying and trying to come up with other ideas. And for different reasons, there hasn't been, that I'm aware of, a fundamental change in the shift structures for years. And I think part of it's because of there's so many parties and issues at play, that to make a big shift change has a big impact on this whole.
It requires a lot of capital. Let me try this out on you. In other words, mommy shift talk, which I think makes sense, might work better in an industry that's less capital intensive and doesn't have such massive investments in maintaining the status quo. I mean, cars are expensive, make multi-billion dollar. It might be better if you're making fences, or toasters, something simpler.
Yeah.
Where a change isn't going to cost millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah. Well, and what makes it even more challenging is some of the innovations that have been done for like efficiency and for
the human factor.
Are like 4x10 shifts in manufacturing. And that makes it really difficult because you only have 24 hours to play with. And then you've got all the suppliers to think about and all of their operations, and how do you integrate all that? And that's what we found when I was president here in Alabama. We challenged to make 4x10 here, and we tried it and we couldn't make it work effectively. And in fact, I had to go basically say, we've got to change back. And the effort that was involved in getting everybody on the same page in the supply network, the associates, everything was part of the reason we really struggled to make that fundamental change.
Can I fill in on this? So these would be people who themselves are used to 3 shifts and maybe supplying to other automotive manufacturers who are on the 3-shift system.
Yeah. And typically in an assembly operation, you typically have 2 shifts. Although there's some that I think do crossover shifts and that sort of thing. In the, like the non-synchronous areas like stamping or plastics run 3 shifts to supply.
Because it's not strictly connected to the assembly line.
It's not connected, but the assembly line typically you need time, a certain amount of time between the shifts in order to do unplanned or even scheduled maintenance. Do other things. You just need a little buffer there because
the machines would break if you didn't maintain them regularly.
Material, method, and machine all together in assembly, and there's just, if you don't have that buffer, we found trying to run it nonstop,
you'd have unplanned jobs.
If you planned the plant from the beginning with the idea of having a different scheme, you possibly could do it, but again, you'd have to get your entire orchestra. Same sheet.
So that's interesting. So you have some things produced on a 24-hour basis, other things on a 16-hour basis.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Now I will say I'm aware of efforts that are ongoing even here in Alabama and the Southeast where there are groups working to make accommodations for better childcare options. And all of those kinds of options that are out there. And there's some headway that's being made in that area. And it's a bigger impact, I think, in some ways on smaller manufacturers and suppliers. But Alabama's actually been one of the leading states in that kind of activity.
Glad to know.
So, I'm proud of them.
Well, let me switch to a different topic, and that is something that's going on right now. So we have gas-powered vehicles. We have all-electric vehicles, which a variety of people are urging us to buy electric and make everything all electric. And then there are people who think hybrid is the way to go. So I've purchased hybrid vehicles. I like them.
Yeah.
They have in my opinion, a lovely mix of enough power and, good energy efficiency, relatively high mileage when you drive a car. With the electrical battery, they kind of go fast if you need to accelerate quickly.
Yeah.
They actually go faster than a gas-powered car, and they're more efficient. And you don't have to ask the question, what's my range? Is it 300 or is it really 225? And where might I be able to plug in? It takes a long time. And filling up a gas tank takes about 3 minutes, and charging a car takes a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I favor hybrids personally, just as a consumer. But you said that there are a lot of things in favor of hybrids from a manufacturing and creation care perspective.
Yeah.
And stewardship of the vehicle itself.
Yeah.
Let's just do the first thing. You said that an all battery powered car, a couple things you said include, you can correct me if I got this wrong. If they're in a fender bender, there's a good chance the whole car will be totaled.
Yeah.
And fires are much greater hazard.
Yeah.
And they also consume a lot more minerals and materials from the earth.
That's my understanding and experience, and some of that, I've had friends that have experienced those exact consequences, from having a relatively new EV that had what they thought was a minor accident, and only to find out that it had to be totaled because there was damage to the compartment where the batteries were. My perspective on EVs is, I know there's a lot of people that really think that's a viable option for the future. I think there's a lot of good research, there's a lot of good activity that's going on, not just in the electric vehicle, but in the various kinds of fuel cells application, hydrogen or whatever it is. And I think for me,
and by the way, we're not going to run out of hydrogen real soon.
Right.
So go ahead.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And so I think there's a lot of other research being done, and a lot of things are going to be brought to bear on the future options that are in front of us. But if the thing that I always struggle with, and I still struggle with, is I think when we started down this road with EVs, from my perspective, we weren't looking from cradle to grave in our perspective. And I didn't feel like we were approaching it with a plan, so to speak.
Or a narrow plan as opposed to a broad plan.
Yeah, narrow plan, meaning we were pushing the EV itself, perhaps.
Yes, or without the infrastructure.
Without at all talking about the infrastructure, in my opinion. And the sources of power that we were going to need to make the batteries and the other components.
So is it time out? I think we didn't talk about this, but maybe we agree on it. It's kind of like saying how great it is to move things by rail, because you can move a ton of whatever for, 1/4 of a penny per 100 miles or some number they come up. But you have to have the tracks.
That's right.
And the cars, and you have to get to the tracks. And so they're enormous hidden costs
for the train and all that sort of
right.
thing. So I felt like, even when I was still active in the industry full time, I felt like there wasn't like the infrastructure to support what was being pushed or proposed. And even inside the companies, I think there were different factions.
I'm sure there were
things. And, what's the right strategy to go with? Where things really started to come together, obviously, was when we started offering government incentives to go that direction. And I was concerned, and I have a lot of friends that are working adamantly on EV technologies and that sort of thing. But I still have concern about making sure that we build the product that the customer wants. Because ultimately, to me, there has to be a natural market.
Yes.
For our product.
Otherwise, you mean apart from subsidies?
Yeah. Otherwise, we don't have someone who can buy it and have joy using it because they don't want it.
Yes.
From my perspective, and that doesn't mean they won't eventually, but until things are at a level where there's a total picture.
Yes.
The customer,
including the ability to drive to your vacation as a family.
I can't tell you how many anecdotally stories I've been told from people who have considered an electric pickup truck.
Yes.
And then completely rejected it. because it didn't fit what they needed it to do.
Yeah, right.
For whatever reason. And it may, the new trucks may now, I don't know.
Someday,
but that's one reason why I also love hybrid products. I think hybrid's a great option for people. We had hybrids until Honda stopped making the car my wife loves. With the hybrid option. Now it's back.
Good.
But I love hybrids. I think they're a great kind of balance for the customer, and they are realistic as far as infrastructure goes. And I love combustion engine cars. So we still have a combustion engine car too.
Yeah, that's good.
But I think
can we talk about resources? I mean, we're as believers, we believe God put immense resources into the earth, and we're supposed to develop them and, mine them and make use of things like sand. You think, what's sand worth? Oh, sand, you can do a lot with sand.
Yeah.
You got to know what you're doing, to make it useful, make it into glass and so forth.
Yeah.
We are mindful of limitations on those resources, right? So is it correct that all electric vehicles are more demanding environmentally in terms of resources it takes, or have I got that a little bit correct?
I don't think that's wrong. I think there's a debate about that, obviously, but and there are different groups that are looking at the full life cycle of an EV versus the life cycle of maybe a hybrid or a combustion engine car or whatever, to kind of see what is and that's what I was telling you, I felt like is missing a little bit. We don't fully understand the entire footprint.
Meaning after the car is no longer in use, for example, that's part of the footprint.
And I have a really good friend who's working in that space who would say, oh yes, we do. And then we can debate about whether we actually understand it enough yet or not. But on the other hand, I mean, EV technology and all that sort of thing is evolving so rapidly. We may be defining it as we're going.
You mean to say we have to pull this podcast in 2 years because our information is outdated?
Possibly.
But put a caveat on it anyway.
Yeah. But, for people at Honda, we used to have a Hondaism called, you need to run while thinking. So we're not opposed to that kind of approach, because that's how you keep up and get the customer what they need. But I think in this case, we need a little more of that structure and understanding of where this is going and how. Now, I just want to say one other thing that I think is important to this is I'm not saying that there's no customer for the EV.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear you.
There's no market. Right. I think what I'm saying is, there should always, from an automaker or manufacturer standpoint, there should be an approach that I've heard some companies call a kind of portfolio approach. So if Dr. Doriani wants this product and it makes sense and I can do this efficiently and use my resources, appropriately and everything, I want Dr. Doriani to have the best electric vehicle I can make.
If, for example, I just take 5-mile trips all the time in my car.
And there's a market for that. But I guess the big issue for me is should it be much more than that? When my market sensors are telling me it's really 10% of my share. Don't
pretend it's 30. Right.
Because that creates loss.
Right.
And that big time loss, ultimately, because you, as you pointed out, you have limited capital, which is so important, and you have to decide how to allocate that. And in a way that has you being a good steward.
That's stewardship also, right.
In all senses of the word.
Right. Not just financial, but human capital, financial capital, the capital of what God put in the world.
And that's what I advocated even when I was active full time in the industry, was let's look at the customer base and let the customer drive our decisions on these things. So.
All right, are you ready for rapid fire questions?
I'll try,
All right. The first question is, what is the best book or show about automotive realities?
The first thing that popped into my head was, there was a team that did this great automotive research project, and it became a great book that I still have somewhere else.
Title of the book is?
It's called The Machine That Changed the World.
The Machine That Changed the World.
The principal writer and researcher was a guy named James Womack from MIT. And he came to Honda and spent hours and hours with us in making that book. He studied the revolution that was going on in the 80s and early 90s with Honda, Toyota, and it seems like there was one other company that was a focal point.
The machine, was it?
Machine that changed the world.
Machine that changed the world. Okay, that's good
and it
recommendation.
looks back at the beginning of auto production in Europe and Detroit and brings it right up to that point.
The present day.
I don't know that it's ever been updated or anything.
Okay. Right. But it's still a good read.
It's a good read. It's a little more of, for somebody who likes research and data and history.
Yeah. And that's what we're looking for.
And another one I would say that popped into my head that I was involved in working on, with a writer named David Gelsenleiter. It's called Jumpstart.
Jumpstart. All right.
And it's a more anecdotal story of those companies that all came to the U.S. Honda, Toyota.
Okay.
And what happened from more of a people perspective.
Okay. That would be interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, those two are really good, I think.
All right. I'm going to ask you to make a prediction. Will we be driving automobiles in 25, 50, 100 years?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. It goes back to me to that issue we were talking about of the market and the infrastructure and the conditions of everything. I think we have the God-given talent, to create so many different novel ways to move people.
Yes.
And there may be some major breakthrough, obviously, but I think that basic unit that was established for transportation.
It's for a small number of people. A lot of people say mass transportation for the whole country is not going to work in a country the size of USA.
Yeah.
Or Russia or China or Canada or Australia, the big countries.
Yeah. I can't imagine,
Brazil.
people being willing to allocate the capital that would be required to build that infrastructure for that any time in my lifetime.
By the way, you're slipping by part of the question. I'm not asking to answer it. I said, will we be driving automobiles?
That's a good question. I don't believe I will be at some point in the future.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
Speak for you.
Well, no, I meant, you trust, a thumbnail answer. Do you think we'll have self-driving cars?
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
And they'll be safe, people use them?
Yeah. But again, I don't know if we'll use them to drive long distances.
Yeah, right.
But there may be some niche
applications, got it.
Yeah. Where that would work. And I know there's some areas that's being deployed now.
Yeah, there are.
And technologies are evolving so fast.
They are.
Who knows? I may be proven wrong tomorrow.
Yeah, we might. What would you say? You're on an elevator at an automotive convention. And so he says, Tom Schoupe, I've heard about you. Tell me what I should do. Give me one master tip to my life in the automotive industry. I'm 25 years old. Give me your number one idea. What would you say? Who'll make him a Christian?
I would say, obviously, stick to your faith and your beliefs as your foundation of everything that makes you who you are. Based on that, I would say keep your mind open and your heart more open. And focus on what you can do to help other people.
Okay.
And build your team.
Okay.
Whatever that team is described as. And use your brain to think by yourself.
Okay.
To think critically about things on your own, because that became one of my biggest concerns, I guess, if you will, that I would see many cases where I knew people knew the right thing to do, and for
they were stuck, they couldn't get there. Yeah.
And a lot of them told me, and talking about a lot of it was that they weren't really engaging their mind. They weren't thinking.
They were just doing what was in front of them.
Yeah, they were doing what they were told to do, and it's
right. Even though they knew better, you might say, if they'd paused.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense.
But one thing that one of my Japanese mentors told me about me, one other thing was, one thing he noticed immediately was how I would jump in. And at Honda at that time, they were growing so fast. Okay. That if that willingness to jump in and help other people, no matter what it was, or to try to solve a problem.
I jump in to help.
Yeah,
jump in to talk or take over, but to jump in to get
That's right. Jump in and figure out how can you help solve a problem.
Right.
And a lot of times at Honda, that meant, you should be manager of such and such.
Yeah, right. Because you just volunteered.
Yeah. And I think that there's room for that spirit today, even though I hear some of the younger generation telling me, it's not like that anymore, Dad. You can't do that. Oh, did I say Dad? But basically,
they might not be talking to you. They might be talking to any dad, right?
Yeah. And so I would tell them they need to focus on those 2 or 3 things at their core. Yeah. And let things fall where they may from.
Yeah. Yeah. And that comes from I'll say a general providence awareness. That is to say that God's giving you the gifts. If you do what you know is right, you're not going to pay a price for it. I mean, of course, you can pay a price for doing the right thing at times. But if you use your mind, use your heart, convictions to help people, go right ahead. Don't hold back.
Yeah. And, more on that very briefly is I found years later, especially after I had that introspective opportunity to live and work in Japan, traveled a lot by myself.
Right.
I found I started observing everything. And then I started checking, was my thinking right or was their thinking right?
Right.
So many things that we fundamentally do different.
Well, when you go to another culture, that always happens. You start noticing there's a very different way to do this, whatever this is.
Well, it changed me because when I got back, I did it every day of my life. In every situation, I was constantly checking myself. Wait a minute. Is that the right way of thinking?
Yeah.
No, I need to ask this guy or this lady, right? In the process of all that, the other thing that the Holy Spirit revealed to me in that was how to understand the gifts I was given.
Right.
And I'm still working on that in
Sure.
some ways. But I think it's an ongoing process. And I went from when I first came out of college, the things that I was good at or strong at, I didn't feel were valued.
Yes.
They weren't things that people would say, you can get a job by having that. You can do this.
Yes.
They were degraded. And what I found both in Washington and then in my career in Honda and the auto industry later on was I thought I was weird and I was not gifted in the way others thought I should be or whatever for a while. But what I learned was I was gifted just in the way God wanted me.
Yes.
And that he had put me where I was. In that situation to shine his light.
Yeah, and I would say that's an extremely common experience that people don't exactly know when they start how they're going to use their gifts that God's given them. Tom, it's been great to have you with us. I know a little bit about automotive manufacturing, and now I know more. So that's one of the goals, and it's great to hear about the way the Lord shaped you and formed you and used your gifts and a variety of interesting experiences to make cars, which we probably all drive every day.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Every day. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Enjoyed the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Working with Dan Doriani is a production of the Center for Faith and Work St. Louis. We seek to promote faithfulness in the workplace, in education, in discipleship, and in the stories of believers who've applied their faith at work. If you want to put your faith to work and change your corner of the world, visit our website, the Center for Faith and Work St. Louis. Look for faithandworkstl.org. That's one word. We'll help you start a cohort with like-minded believers who also want to practice their faith at work. This podcast is donor-supported. To keep us going, please donate on our website. Maybe more importantly, you can support us by listening, by subscribing, by sharing, by liking us, by posting us on your favorite platform, or go old school and tell a friend.